Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Sewer Commission's regular monthly meeting. We'll begin with a roll call, starting with Corey.
Corey White, Sewer Superintendent.
Keith Canton, Assistant Sewer Foreman.
Lynn Pooler, Sewer Secretary.
Dave Pierce.
Commissioner.
Tim Redmond, Commissioner.
Daniel Taylor, Commissioner.
Michael Trank, Consulting Engineer.
Jim Craig, Select Board Rep.
Thank you everyone for being here. The first item on our monthly meeting is always public comment. If there's anybody who would like to come up and speak at public comment, now's the time. Seeing no one here, we'll close public comment. We have minutes from February 11th meeting, 2025. Does anybody have anything to say about them?
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes, February 11th.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. New business. Lynn, could you tell us what the new business is, please?
Yep, Mr. Dupuy is planning on building a duplex where there used to be a garage. They demoed the garage, and they want to put a duplex in, and he's here to ask for permission from the commission.
Thank you. Do you have anything, come on up to the table. Would you have anything to add at this time, Corey, before we start?
So it's on the end of Larch Street. There wasn't currently a service for that garage, so he'll have to put a new service tying into our main. And Larch Street is not a heavy use street.
Is
So
it the
the-
last property? Well, I'll let you, ask Kathleen.
There's plenty of capacity in that. It's a short street.
Now, does the condos come down Larch Street?
The other end.
They go out the other end. Which way do they go on the other end, Corey?
Are you talking about the ones off of College, or
Which Larch Street are we on? Are we on the,
we're on the, well, they're both dead ends on that side, but on the right side of
on the
Mass.
right side of Larch Street?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it was the other one going
Yeah.
in where the new condos were built. Okay. Now, I'd like the applicant to give us your name and tell us what you want to do.
My name's Jordan Dupuy, and I'm looking to build a duplex on Larch Street, map 172-1, and I'd like permission to hook into the town sewer.
What's there now, Jordan?
There was a 2-bay garage.
And are you going to tear that garage down?
It's currently torn down.
Currently torn down, okay. So is there an existing sewer there now, Corey, for that site?
No,
So for a duplex, it's 2 services, right?
he can do 1 6-inch, so he only has to, he can wire them together.
Wire them together on
Yeah.
private property?
Mhm.
Now, what did you tell the gentleman about accessory and all that, access fees and all
He's
that?
very knowledgeable about the fees, because he built one last year on
Heald Street.
Heald Street,
So there's 2 charges for the 2 connection, for the 2
each
services?
side. Yep.
Yep.
So it'll be $10,000 total.
And then you explained to him his monthly rates, he already knows his monthly rates?
Yeah, $490 a half, twice a year.
For, yeah.
For each.
That would be the total for the 2 of them each
Yep.
billing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Corey, do you have any recommendations that you'd like to provide the commissioners with?
I think that we should allow him to connect.
Okay. So the issue of capacity has been addressed? Okay. What's in the street right now? What kind of sewer main?
It's 8-inch clay lined.
8-inch clay lined. Is that going to give him any difficulty with his tapping and saddling and any of that business?
No.
Okay. All right. Board members?
So
Anybody-
Jordan, you realize you have to have Corey or the assistant on site when that trench is put, when the sewer line's put in.
I do, yes.
All right. Gentlemen? Do we need a motion, or do we just, is this just an administrative
We
item?
can just an administrative item.
Okay, so it's administrative item. We'll turn this matter over to the sewer superintendent and the secretary, as they have told us that there's enough capacity in the line, and the applicant understands all the conditions to hook up to the town sewer.
Good.
Thank you. You're all set, Jordan?
Good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
You people have a great evening.
Yeah, I told you it would be quick.
I said the same thing.
Thank you for following our process, which is to come to us before you go get a plan drawn for the town.
Always follow the process. I've learned the hard way, so. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Old business, DPW emergency policy. I'm the one that instituted this. This is a question that was asked by the finance department regarding when an emergency is declared so that overtime can be assessed from our overtime account. We have no policy on that, so that's what discussion is tonight between the commissioners and how we would do this. I contacted the DPW and found out that Adam pretty much, the Public Works Director, Adam Jacobs, pretty much assigns that authority to his supervisors. So that whoever the supervisor on call is that night, they make the decision to call in crew or how many to call in. So it would seem to me, it would be fair to assign Corey the authority to make such decisions. I do not think it needs to come before the commissioners for it to decide when an overtime situation is warranted. So I'm going to ask Dave and Daniel for comment.
That's very reasonable to me.
That makes sense.
If
Oh, sorry.
Corey is, if he needs assistance, he'll call for his able-bodied assistant. If he can feels he can tackle it himself, he'll do that himself.
I think I'd also like to address the possibility that Corey be on vacation in Mexico somewhere, that he wouldn't be here to declare that. So I think we should, by extension, have Keith make the same available decisions when Corey is not in town, so that if he needed a VACON truck or assistance from DPW for a hole in the road or something, that we should extend that authority to Keith in Corey's absence. And we would only ask Corey that you supply the sewer secretary when you would be unavailable for such decisions, and that would be in the record at her desk, so that if a decision is made by Keith, that we're following our policy.
Okay.
I think Tim maybe have answered the question I was thinking of at the time. Are there situations that you could envision that you would want the emergency assistance of Public Works crew?
We haven't really run into that situation yet, but if they're there, I mean, if I couldn't get a hold of anybody else, that they would probably be my go-to. If there was a hole in the street and I couldn't get a guy out there to...
But in that case, you would contact the on-call supervisor that evening and make arrangements.
Correct.
Okay.
We have reciprocal arrangements, I believe, with DPW to reimburse them for overtime costs that any of their employees may incur if we ask them to assist us with a sewer emergency.
Correct.
And I think a hole in the road would qualify as a sewer emergency or something to that effect, that technically is their road.
Mm-hmm.
So they would obviously want to be advised if we had a difficulty where the road was impacted.
Correct.
Okay. So, based on that discussion, our discussion, we'll take a vote tonight, and I will try to summarize it in a short form based on what the commissioners want, and I will give it to Lynn, and you can balance that against your minutes that you've been taking.
Okay.
Make sure I didn't miss anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're gonna give me a motion? I need like a motion.
Yeah, I'll give you a motion without the full language of the policy.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I agree. I'm in agreement that Corey should be responsible. But Danielle noted a potential conflict of interest. Do we want to review, and with a potential, like, solution, do we want to review, like, the past month's, emergencies, declarations at our monthly meetings?
You mean as a matter of course, have Corey provide us with a report
Yeah.
of monthly? I think that's fine if Corey could provide us, or Keith could provide us with a report, so we would know what they are, is that what
Right,
you're saying?
yes,
Fine,
exactly.
I agree with that completely.
I'll just put it on the agenda each month, and if he has something, great, if not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Corey be responsible to inform the commissioners of the prior month's emergency calls. All right, I will write up the policy and present it to you both, gentlemen, to review. before we actually put it in place. But in the meantime, I think we should have a voice vote or a motion to authorize Corey to do this in the interim until the policy is actually established.
The policy you're going to be drafting, if the emergency situation is going to roll over the 2 or 3 days of some on-site improvement, he would then be appropriate to at least alert you as chair.
They always do.
I always do.
They always call
I know,
me.
but just want to make that clear.
That's fine. I agree with that. I doubt if we'd have multiple days of overtime, but you never say never.
Yeah.
So, could I have a motion from one of you gentlemen to, or do you want me to make the motion? I don't care.
I motion that the chair should draft an emergency policy that would define how to declare overtime, emergency overtime sessions.
Could you please include it in the interim that Corey would be,
Yeah.
that
And
motion, please?
Corey, our sewer superintendent would be the person declaring the emergency, or in his absence, the assistant superintendent.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion passes. So Lynn, would you please notify Danielle tomorrow that we've discussed it? We will have a written policy shortly, and in the interim that Corey is verbally authorized to declare an emergency
Yep.
and set overtime. Just so she knows we addressed it tonight. And
Now, Dave made the motion, did you second it,
Yep.
Dan? And you voted 3-0-0, right?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I've asked Corey to prepare a project list for this season to use our appropriated CIP money, which we had thought we were going to be doing sewer reconstruction on another major project, say Higgins Street. That's changing slightly, so I've asked Corey to prepare a list of projects for discussion and what we're going to move forward. We've already talked about one briefly. We talked about Cross Street last month.
Correct.
So Corey, could you please take the floor?
So I came up with a list of 6 different things that we can address with the money. First being the repair on Laurel Street, which is replacing a existing manhole and replacing 25 feet of pipe on either side of it, because the manhole has actually settled.
So that's a settled manhole.
It's a settled
Okay.
manhole, yep. The other one we talked about a little is Warren Ave. That's around 80 feet of sewer main itself, not getting into any manholes, just the main.
What is that related to, Corey?
That is related to the liner that is failing inside,
And caused the,
caused the backup.
into that
I don't remember the house number, but yeah, caused
Okay.
backup. And
Warren Avenue repair.
we have, which we talked about a little last year, but paving work at Riverview Pump Station, getting rid of a fair amount of the 3/4 stone. That is, it's very difficult to maintain, and there's not enough asphalt when you plow the driveway. We need to extend it or redo it really completely. And pave in between the gate that we come in every day and between our buildings. You have the pump station and a generator building, and everything is 3/4 stone. So it's actually very difficult to maintain, even during the winter time. It's not like I can take a snow blower through there. So you're trying to shovel on 3/4 stone. So we'd like to pave in between those two and a pathway to our propane tank. So we can get in there, clean it up, and get rid of the rest of the 3/4 stone and essentially plant grass.
So this is where we just put our new building in, Riverview Pump Station.
Correct.
I know stone is difficult because the grass and weeds grow up through the stone all the time too.
Yep, and it doesn't really freeze, so every time you go off it with a plow, you dig big holes.
Okay.
So we could go through the East Union Pump Station and Moose Club and potentially St. A's, those 3 two are pump stations, one's a metering pit, and change the equipment, the metering equipment in them, and update it to the mission system like we already have in Riverview and the metering station on the rail trail. It's a much better system than what we're using now, and it's all cellular. So if an alarm goes off, the pump station actually calls me. And we don't have to worry about telephone lines and all that kind of thing, which is an issue now.
So how many locations was that, Corey? I wrote down East Union, Moose Club Park, and St. A's Meter Station. Are other locations, or?
Those are the three other locations that do not have it. That
And they would be upfitted with the,
mission system.
which is the automatic, it's phone-controlled systems?
Yes, it hooks into the existing cabinets. So every time a pump turns on, I literally can just look at my cell phone and see that the pump is turning, the hours, how much it pumped, if it's pumping, if it's running too long, if it overheats, if the power goes out.
Where do we have that in place already?
Riverview Park, we put it in last year, and the metering pit on Byron Street has it.
Does Elm Street have it?
Elm Street does not have it.
Okay.
Elm Street has a different system that got put in before we had the mission. That is an auto dialer. So if anything goes down inside there,
You
it
still
calls
get
me
phone
directly.
notification?
Yep.
Okay. So there's 3 locations that we do not have automatic notification that you're asking for, considering having funds to upfit these with us.
Correct.
Okay.
The other one, the East Union Pump Station used to have a whole irrigation system. It was not used for many years. We'd like to go through and fix or replace what we can so we can get the irrigation system working again.
And what does that take care of, Corey?
It waters our entire lawn.
Even on the slope going out to the drive road? Okay.
No,
Right.
from the bottom, from the driveway to the river.
Okay, so it's
That
all below
whole-
the pump
it's
station?
all below the pump station.
Okay. And that's part of the area you guys maintain now?
Yes.
Okay.
And it, from what Mike Yergo was telling me, that was always used back in the day.
Okay.
And it would just be nice to have the system up and running again. There would definitely be some work into it, because you remember you were there, we had to cut a bunch of it, and
To dig out the back when
Yep.
we did the paving. and the
yeah,
back.
and we threw a sleeve in, so everything's there. We don't have to dig up the parking lot or anything.
Pretty much, it costs you more money to mess with the old stuff than it does to just have a new system installed.
Pretty much.
So let's not even discuss fixing anything in the field, let's just discuss upgrading the control panel in the basement, in the building if you need to.
It's not even in the building anymore.
Okay.
So,
Could it be?
yes, absolutely.
So why don't you just get us some numbers on a total replacement of that system with the controls and the new piping and the new heads? I don't think we should consider trying to repair anything there.
And the last thing on my list, which is kind of a yearly occurring thing anyways, was fixing various sunk down manhole frames and covers. And trying to find somebody that wants to jump around, because they're all over the place.
Well, I would say, Corey, that you'd be well within your authority with your budget to fix manhole frames anytime you want to fix manhole frames, just as long as you do a vendor form. I talked with you about possibly getting an annual vendor form for everything, so you don't have to, every time you want to do a job, you don't got to do the 3-bid thing.
Yep.
If you do an annual budget request for services for raising manholes, for instance, then you can submit it once and use it for 30 days, for 60 days, or all year, or whatever we determine.
You mentioned another company that you had worked with in Portsmouth.
Northeast Roads, I'll give you the information.
Martinez Brothers isn't interested in hopping around. They want nothing
Well,
to do
these
with
guys don't really either, to be honest with you, but I have some
Yeah.
other vendors, you know. Tim is back in business.
it. Really?
Tim Clement is back in business, so you can call Tim Clement. And I don't think a lot of people are gonna wanna bid, so if you put out an RFP and you get one bid, it meets the requirement that we have.
Mhm.
So we'll go over that with you when the time comes.
All right.
Yeah, let me know what I'm supposed to do for that, because I have no idea what.
Yeah, that's,
It's simple.
so that's basically what I came up with.
Questions from commissioners on Corey's list? Well then, Corey, if there's no, oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
No, fine.
If there's no questions, why don't you, get some numbers together for us for our next meeting?
Mhm.
And we can vote to authorize you to, begin the bidding process. I would say, based on, does anybody have a problem with him getting bids to bring us back at the next meeting? No?
Entirely correct.
So why don't you start your bidding, and maybe you can report some of your low bidder reports between now and 30 days from now. I'm on board with everything, to be quite honest, because we have a budget for our CIP. We're not gonna be able to use it this year, because we're obviously not even gonna do Cross Street this year. And you may wanna keep thinking about other projects that could be rolled into this if we haven't got any lining that left to be done.
So I got a phone call actually from Mike Yergo, and we talked at length, and he actually brought up St. A's Drive. There's a section on St. A's Drive that needs to be replaced.
Okay, can you tell us where it is?
Yep. So it's on St. A's Drive, starting at Heald Street. There's a
Okay.
manhole in the sidewalk right there. And from there to the lawn of the college, when you come down, you have the wooded section all on the right.
Yeah.
And then their field starts.
Yeah.
There's another manhole on the back side of the sidewalk in the lawn right there.
So does the line cross the road at that point, you're telling me? Because Heald Street's on the left coming in, isn't it?
The main runs down Heald Street to the manhole on St. A's, and then
Yeah.
takes a left.
And goes towards the college?
Yes, but the flow actually goes the other way.
All right,
Comes down,
comes down that way.
yeah.
And what did the video of this line show you?
That's a good question, because I don't have a video of it. I didn't know that any of that section needed to be replaced. I guess that is a section, he said the whole thing is like
And
that.
does the campus dump into that line?
Only, there's one section of the campus that dumps into there. And that's all the way, the building all the way on the right.
Now, is that something we have ever discussed with St. A's?
It's all part of the calculation for the college.
It is part of the
Yeah.
calculation, even though that does not go through the metering bit?
Correct.
Okay.
It's one of the parcels
Yeah.
covered by the agreement, even though the flow doesn't go through the pit.
Thank you. Well, certainly, if we could get you to look at it, is it a single replacement of a straight line run?
I think there's, in total, would be 3 manholes. And I think it's a little over maybe 600 feet.
Would you be able to get a video line for that, so you would know better on what you would want to recommend?
Absolutely.
Well, and that is in your budget to do that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
600 feet would be considerable.
It's the same length as Albert Street was.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're on board. Figure out how we're gonna get these repairs done and keep our CIP money that we budgeted moving. Sometimes these are add-ons in a season, which really balloons our budget,
Mhm.
but with the CIP money in place and the project not probably going to happen, this is a good way to redirect the CIP funds towards this.
Can you make the pipe larger so we can use the accessibility fees?
Going in the wrong direction, make
Yeah.
it larger, Lynn. If it was going away, yeah, maybe, but it's coming too, so you can't do that. I thought the same thing before you asked it, and
How many residential connections in this 600?
Believe it or not, I think there's only 3.
and is any of it in the road?
Yep. It's in the right hand, one manhole's in the center, of the eastbound lane.
Which is the one going into the campus, is that
Correct,
eastbound?
towards the campus, if you come off of 114.
Okay, and where's
And
the
then
other?
the next one is off on the fog line, and then it goes into the yard.
Is St. A's under a paving moratorium?
No,
Okay, good. And you'll also give us a depth when you, line depth when you do your
correct.
camera
Yep.
work?
How much of pre-surveying or engineered drawings are required for that project? Do we engage Mike
I would
Once
say
we-
so at that point,
once we want to go ahead?
because none of it's very, we'll see what the camera, what it looks like, but there's probably gonna be some engineering involved in that.
We'll get Mike's opinion when the time comes, after you get us the information. Any comment or questions about Corey's list of 6 items he wants to try to work on to move forward with CIP funding?
Is the irrigation system necessary?
Yeah. We can't keep, so without the grass, it washes the slope out. Without watering the grass, it burns and it just dies. So we're constantly trying to keep the grass on the hill so it stops washing out.
And you may remember, we did,
Yeah.
we did a remediation job there on erosion issues going into the river, so I think we would
Yeah.
be a good idea to maintain the grass on that slope so that we don't have the erosion problem return.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions for Corey? Corey, you're still on the stump here, you wanna talk to us about Moose Club Park Pump Station power update?
I don't really have a lot of information on that. I contacted Eversource and they wanna look at it, so.
They want an engineer to come.
Yeah, they wanna, we were out there today looking at the, how it would be 8 poles from where the 3-phase stops now to where it crosses the river. It doesn't look impossible, but
So, just to clear that up, where the 3-phase stops on the other side of the river, we'd have to add 8 poles on the other side of the river?
no, we would add, depending on if the poles on Riverview Park Road can handle the 3-phase to
They
continue it
will
down.
automatically wanna raise the poles.
And that's where we kinda thought, so you can count the poles, it's 8 poles to get there.
And then, at that point, it's gotta turn 90 degrees to cross the river?
Yep.
And what's the span of the river? Do you have any idea based on your topographical data or anything down there?
Probably 150, 200 feet.
Well, they do 200 feet a section normally.
There's already
Probably over
the
200
neighbor's
feet.
property has
A
line.
pole and a line, yeah, that's what gave us
And
the
a
idea.
new pole on our property.
Correct.
So if it's under 200 feet, then it's a normal run for Eversource. There's nothing that would require any special infrastructure, other than a lot of guide wires on the other end and guide
Yeah,
wires.
correct.
Say it's about 250 feet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So where it turns to cross the river, they already have an easement, I'm certain, for the pole that's there now. So if they upgraded that pole, we wouldn't get involved with any easements, I'm sure.
Probably not.
Because if it's a new line and a new location on private property, there'd be a whole lot of easements involved.
Mhm.
So it's an existing line with upgraded poles coming across.
But we might even have an easement there now anyways,
I don't know.
for the force main.
Well, it's a different
Yeah,
subject.
and the other thing that comes into play is the height of the line over the river.
I will make it known to the commissioners because of my experience. Eversource will come out and they will make a plan for the job and they will give us a price. We are allowed to source one of their approved contractors to do the work, which is USA, who's a Goffstown company, IC Reed, JC Reed, they're all approved Eversource contractors. And we could, once we have an approval, we could source the job to them and it would cost us less. I can guarantee you that. So we have to begin with the engineering from Eversource
Mhm.
and get their approval and input and the whole package.
Correct.
Then we can get a price from Eversource and then we can ask them to let one of their own approved vendors give us a price as well.
Correct.
I would consider that project to be an upgrade to our
Absolutely.
existing system.
Absolutely.
It provides better reliability.
It provides something that's not there, actually.
And it takes it out of the woods. That's where the line, existing power line runs down there now. It's in everybody's backyards, between their house and the river. And it's,
Well, we have to cross the river.
no, the existing line goes
For the
out.
single phase?
Yes,
Oh,
it's
okay.
horrible. It's
And
a
it sounds
nightmare.
like we can use accessibility fees
That's
for
what
that
David
one.
just said, yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
And we can look towards a three-phase generator for that site. And we don't have to rely on those crazy
Inverters.
pumps that are inside the building
Mhm.
that are, how old, Corey?
1990,
That's,
88.
that's old.
And it gets rid of those, the inverters on the wall in there, because every time an electrician walks in there, they go, oh.
Well, that's the part of it I was talking about.
And the backup generator is only hooked to one,
Only hooked to one,
so
and
that we would have no redundancy when we're in a power outage situation.
no, and you have no power either. It literally,
It's
there's
a
no lights.
Mechanical.
Yeah.
Well, it's the beginning of the construction season, and it takes a lot of time to get this stuff organized, so I would appreciate your effort to try to get in touch with an engineer from Eversource. You may have to engage an electrician, because these types of projects require that a work order is generated, and generally an electrician generates the work order.
Well, yeah,
So we may have to find our electrical
we have
contractor.
one.
Right, so you
Yeah.
may have to discuss it with
Okay.
our electrician to generate a work order. That's how you get in their queue.
And this project, we were just discussing, it dovetails on something I'm gonna bring up under new business, which is what we're gonna do, because a letter we received from Federal Environmental Protection Agency, and 1/3 of the requirements they're discussing in this letter is we have to define the alternative power for critical systems.
Good.
This is
So we're
what-
following right in line.
And that, exactly what
Unless
we're
that
discussing.
unless that edict gets kicked out because the administration wants to cut regulations. Corey, also, 7 could be, a 7th item for you could be a discussion of the generator for the other pump station that's down on the Manchester line, the one that's inside the building that's problematic and noisy, or whatever that problem is down there. Isn't that something?
Oh,
What pump station is that?
Riverview. It's just, that one is just, it's really old.
Well, no, Riverview. What is the pump station we just replaced the building on?
Riverview.
Now, isn't there another pump station down at the end of the rail trail at the Manchester line?
Oh,
or is-
no. That's
That's a
Moose-
metering pit.
Yeah, that's a metering pit. Moose Club is the one that's super loud that the neighbors do not like. The other two, there's nothing, you're not gonna do anything with the one at East Union because it's,
And Moose Club is the one we're talking about new power to?
yes.
Oh, okay, so I was confused, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, the one in the Riverview is actually very quiet, believe it or not. It's a Ford 460 that runs on
And
propane.
that's on a separate building?
Yep.
On a pad behind it? Okay. Any more information or requests for Corey for his project list? All right, so we're gonna move on to status of the mercury in the water from our consultant, Mike Trank.
I don't have anything off from that.
Good
I haven't
report,
seen the
Mike.
letter.
Short report. Have you been able to find anyone that's willing to consult into mercury?
Well, I want to see the letter first,
Oh, okay,
to
well,
see
well,
what the issues
I
are.
apologize, well, I have it on my computer, and I'll very promptly this
Okay.
evening forward you,
Sounds good.
our superintendent and Mike copy.
I think that the fact that we're dealing with it satisfies our obligation to do something. It's like the state statute about something as simple as a pothole in the road. if you don't address a pothole within a certain number of hours, 24, 36, 72, you could be held in gross negligence, therefore you would be liable for damages that are incurred by that pothole, state law. However, if you would make a plan to fix it, you're in compliance with the state law, that we are gonna have a crew go out and pave it next Thursday, because that's as soon as they can get there. So at least we're in compliance with someone saying that we're not doing anything about this, we're actually investigating it, working.
Yeah, doing a bunch of research on mercury and where it comes from or how it can get into the collection system. And there's various ways. Medical is one of the biggest ones, like we had talked about before.
Now, are we gonna have to set up some receiving areas to do testing other than the metering pit that we talked about?
I think you would just do it. I would probably do it in pump stations to figure out what area of town it's coming
Well,
from.
Well, the closer we can find it to the source, the better. So
Yeah.
we would start with metering pits and pump stations, I would assume, right?
Yep, I would probably,
And then you can backtrack from those locations?
I would start right probably at East Union Pump Station, because that, a lot of flow. And it'll tell you if the village is clean or dirty.
It's on the inlet side, obviously, always.
And trying to remember, where was it tested?
It's tested at St. A's College, and it's tested at the Manchester metering pit on the rail trail.
And both were high?
Yes,
Both were high yet.
multiple, every 6 months high.
Well, that's two different locations then, because the Manchester metering pit on the rail trail takes the village, and the St. A's metering pit takes St. A's only, and that
It's like-
goes into their system by a different route.
Mhm.
It doesn't go through that
It's,
second
it's
metering
a-
station.
It's a point source to us. So we have everything.
In two
up-
locations,
Everything uphill is
two different
on private
locations.
land.
So we need to have a conversation with St. A's to deal with their situation
been-
separately from our townwide potential
Yeah,
source in town.
and I've been looking at their curriculum and trying to look at the research on mercury and look at their curriculum, or what could they be using it for? And it's, nowadays, it's something that nobody wants to use because it is so bad. So I can't really tie the two together. They say believe it or not, old light bulbs are terrible. That's a source,
The fluorescent tube,
Yeah.
fluorescent.
not incandescent, I
No.
don't believe.
And they said
Do we have any recycling operations in town?
at DPW, but that's not hooked to the
Well,
system.
they don't bust fluorescent tubes there. I think they go into
In
containers and
boxes,
they're
yeah.
shipped out in like egg crates
Mhm.
to where they can be properly disposed of.
So it's,
What about
Well-
the junkyard where the cars are, would be any mercury from
They're
that?
not on sewer, the one down in,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not on sewer system. All right, well, we'll let you guys, Dave will give the information to Mike and you guys can begin your Sherlock Holmes thing.
But just to be clear, I have the test results at 2 different locations. That's what I need to provide you to, right?
yeah, and,
Yeah, okay.
And the letter, they want the letter.
yeah, we
that
want a
you
copy
got.
of the letter that you received.
Okay. The commission received a letter from federal EPA on our entire operation.
Oh,
It has
okay.
nothing to do with
I got it on my email and I forwarded it to Dave.
today.
We thought that was talking about the,
It says that we have, there's various plans we have to have in place in short to document to EP that we're running a credible system.
And this,
oh,
and
we
I
thought that
got,
had to do with the mercury.
I got
That's
it
what I
from
thought.
That's what I
Nothing
thought
to
too.
do with the points we just discussing.
I
Okay.
think it came to me because my
My-
email address is with the city of Manchester.
Yeah, my concern is that Manchester is doing the testing for us. At some point, they're gonna
Say no.
Yeah.
clamp down on us. What are you doing? And you need to be ramping up an investigation to mitigate this problem.
Mike, I would ask you that one of the first things that you do, before you even give us a contract or anything, is at least reach out and find out who can do mercury testing for us in the wastewater system. be very helpful. Thank you. You know you're gonna get a contract, you just, sometimes you always work for us ahead of the signature, which we appreciate.
It's fine.
Okay. So the, we will look to get some information on that at our next meeting. Other businesses warranted, Dave has something, I have one quick thing before we do that. Corey, can you give us an update on your permission last month about the, ordering a new pickup?
So I received the proposal and I had Tim sign it this evening. I'll drop that to the McFarland Ford tomorrow so that we can place the order.
Can you please tell the commissioners where we are monetarily based on the 90,000 that we appropriated in CIP?
So the total cost with ordering the truck with the plow, having a bed liner, spray and bed liner put in, is $59,940.
So we're well below our appropriated amount.
And the rest, once we actually get our hands on the vehicle, there'll be a back rack, a ladder rack basically.
And what is the arrangement with the value on the trade-in?
So they will not assess a value on the trade-in until the new truck comes in, and because they don't know, that they could tell you right now, but they don't know when the truck is gonna get here, and that truck could be totaled between now and then. So they won't actually assess the trade-in value until the truck comes here.
So
So that
it's-
will change.
So before you take delivery on the new truck, we would appreciate it if you could inform us as to the trade value and have an opinion on the trade value, if it is a fair amount or if another means of disposing of the old truck would be recommended.
Okay.
Okay. That is by way of either an auction or private sale. All right, that takes care of that. Any questions for Corey on the vehicle story? So Dave, I'd like to turn the floor over to you for what you want to do on new business.
Two items, Mr. Chair. March 5th, I attended an all-day workshop hosted by our insurance company Primex and DES, state level DES, on cybersecurity. It was well attended, about 80 people there from water precincts and sewer facilities throughout the whole state. And we were told that we need to be
Diligent.
diligent, yeah, thank you, as to how machinery on facility floors are, if they're controlled via the internet, to be, reduce the risk of that, being taken over by a threat. And just, anyways, many different aspects were being discussed about the controls being maliciously taken over. I don't know, DES has a statewide contract with a company Corey's mentioned called the Overwatch Foundation, and they provide advice under the state contract, and they could also provide services to municipalities too. Things like along the line of an incident response time.
Mhm.
But that would all depend on if we had if there's operations in our plant that are susceptible to threat, then we would need a plan as to how serious that is, and what do we do if there's if you perceive the cursor wandering around on your monitor and you're not touching anything.
I brought this to a meeting a few months ago, and he talked to Brian about it and to the water department, and they said that there was nothing.
Brian is the one that urged
Yeah, they said there was nothing that,
And we've already had the Overwatch Foundation, or whatever it's called. They actually came and met with me and Brian Ray and looked at everything we had last summer to see if we had any chance of somebody hacking what we had being,
What would someone do if they hacked into our system?
Turn pumps off and on.
but our system doesn't allow that. You have to manually do it, so
So
It's
the only thing you're
basically-
really doing is reading,
monitoring, that's it.
and you're getting reports if a pump is down.
Correct.
So they could hack into the system and say there's a pump down, which you would have to run over there for nothing
Well,
for.
that's a telephone.
There's no, it's literally, it's hooked to a receiver in the pump house, and when it goes down, that receiver calls me directly. That's not actually tied to the internet at all, it's just.
Is that
this-
more in line for SCADA systems possibly?
That's, exactly, that's for like Lee at the water department, or a treatment plant where they're using chemicals. Somebody can hack in there and dump a bunch of chemicals when nobody's even there, or shut it off
Could you just tell the
completely.
folks briefly what a SCADA system is, just in layman's terms?
Supervisory control.
So SCADA it's a monitoring system, but the monitoring system allows you access whether you're standing in the building or not. And it gives you all your reports, everything you're actually putting in, like I'll use Lee as an example, the drinking water. He can sit in his house and look at the testing that's being done, what amount of, say, chlorine. He could add chlorine if need be. He can turn a pump on, he can shut a pump off, all from his cell phone. Where ours is very not like that. You can't change anything with a cell phone. You have to change it in person.
We like having you guys on payroll to do that for us, and not rely on the internet, which is susceptible to this stuff.
Yeah.
We are better off without
Has that
it.
happened anywhere nationally?
So this Overwatch Foundation, when they came in, it was pretty impressive because Lee was with us as well. And he was able to, on his laptop in about 30 seconds, find Lee's network.
oh, wow, that's scary.
Yep,
So he could have hacked into it at that point if he was a bad actor.
yes,
Wow.
So Jim asked you a question. Can you answer Jim's question?
sorry.
Actually, has that happened? Has any system been hacked in the country?
I would have to assume so because they're actually pushing this education.
There's about 50 incidences a month just in New Hampshire.
Really?
Unsuccessful.
What's that?
Some of the
Unsuccessful.
older sewer facilities, the control operations might have been running off of a Windows 7 computer, and it's never been upgraded.
If you'd like to know about it, come down to Brian Ray's office during business hours for IT. Go in the IT office, they have a TV screen on the wall about the size of that blackboard, and it has lines jumping from Indonesia to here and there to there. That is registering the amount of cyber attacks that happen every day.
Really?
And it never stops going, and the numbers are in the millions. It's ridiculous how many cyber attacks are happening every day, and they're all reported through that link that our town's IT system has. So if you want to get educated, go look at that board.
I'm aware that's happened, but it's a new one on me that they would, sewer systems or water systems.
Well, if you can shut off a city's water system, you
Yeah,
can
right, no,
cripple
I
it.
get it.
If you shut off a sewer system and don't shut the water system off, that's even worse.
Never thought of that.
Or you mentioned, somebody mentioned earlier, turning pumps on and off.
We
You
would
can get a
have
pump
new-
to turn on and off 10,000 times, you're gonna burn up the
We would
pump.
have new outflows which aren't defined by E EPA.
We actually had an incident, Jim, in the construction of the apartments across from Putnam's. The contractor dug into our main line from the village that feeds all the sewerage from everybody in the village area into our pump station. They snapped it in half when they dug through without proper dig safe credentials. If those guys didn't fix that in the timely fashion they did, and it was blocked, it wouldn't take long until toilets all over the village would have been overflowing because the water pushing from all directions would have just inundated the system and it would have, the water's not going anywhere at that point.
Well, Dave would have been really upset, because he was right on the other side of that.
The point of the discussion is that this stuff is serious business, and people may think that the sewer commissioners have a do-nothing job. It's not a do-nothing job. There's a lot of responsibility with our position.
I didn't mean to
And we all
infer
take it
that,
very
but-
seriously.
Yeah.
I do not have
Backflow preventer?
no, I do not have a floor drain.
Oh,
Oh, that's nasty.
Well, that doesn't help you much when the toilet.
Anything that would back up in my neighborhood goes into the river, not into my basement.
oh, that's good.
Okay. So Dave, do you have anything else you'd like to add on the cybersecurity thing?
While I was at this meeting in Concord, I was accosted by one of the assistant town engineers in Bedford, and he had learned that the sports complex St. A's is planning, that the flow from the complex, I have no idea how they're determining what this flow is, but the flow is being assessed against the daily flow from Bedford. You know, we have a 2.13 million gallons a day that we can deliver to Manchester. They have some number of flow that they can deliver, and they're currently pumping at some level. Well, the flow from Manchester is being added to that daily flow. And so he, he was,
So what was it?
their capacity is being impacted by this flow.
Well, they have enough capacity to allow that, right? Or are they gonna deny it?
They're not gonna die. They're simply, they were caught unaware that, their daily flow is being impacted by this facility, whereas the physical flow comes through our pipes and will pay for the treatment.
Okay.
But they were, and he was somewhat upset that their daily limitation level is being impacted by this facility. And the second point is,
Well, then we have a solution to that.
the second point is that Manchester has told Bedford if they have any more development in that region of the old farm, that they're gonna be required to put in sewer line.
Good, because that was my answer to their disapproval, is that we don't want that. We don't want the revenue from it or anything, but the fact is that they have repeatedly denied that Worthley Hill neighborhood access to sewer because the residents don't want development up there.
So those were the two things I learned from
Well, good.
what's going on in Bedford.
How are they calculating the impact if it's
Well, they
coming
must
to us?
have a flow calculation
They're just
based on
gonna
the people that are gonna be there.
The state's table has a provision for a sports complex.
But they haven't come to the sewer commission for a future hookup, so.
Well, this went to the planning board, as you may remember, Dave. They have authority by an RSA to pass water through our town. They've never asked about the capacity. But the fact is that the RSA permits them, and we talked about it, intermunicipal agreements to let water come through our town from another town. They are still in the beginning stages because the zoning board of adjustment.
So what I'm going to do to further this conversation, we talked about the two testings that we have had in our pit that I'm going to provide to you two gentlemen. I'm going to inquire from Manchester if there's another one that they know about. So I don't want to wait till next year's annual meeting for them to give me the testing results. So I'm going
The
to
more
see.
mercury
Yes, so
findings?
I want to see if there's a more current test that they just haven't informed us about.
That's great.
And I want to ask them at that time, how would they determine the flow for that complex?
as Corey stated, there might be a state chart that has sports complex, and then they have the number of participants, and they might have just a number
Okay.
in a book.
Wrapping this up, Mr. Chair.
Second item,
Second item, reference the letter you forwarded to me that came out of EPA in the middle, 16 December. It has 3 subjects that our sewer system has to comply with. And one of them, well, the first one may not apply to us because it's unauthorized discharges to a river or stream, and we have no outflows, yeah, unless some sewer.
There's none that we know of.
Yeah. But the next one is operation and maintenance, and there it requires an adaptation plan for our facility, defining what our critical assets are, how can we assure that those assets are being properly protected, and maintenance schedule. And then the third portion of this requirement for a permit to operate requires a source system operation maintenance plan. So I think my first thing is, do we have something that's officially called a source system operation maintenance plan, operations and maintenance?
probably not.
Probably not, but before we say no, let me dig into our files and see if we actually do have something that's called that.
You can dig into that brain too, the other guy.
Yes.
Yes.
So the adaptation plan, does that describe when we have emergencies, how are we gonna adapt and overcome?
And it has it's an annual report on the 31 of March each year.
For all 3 items,
Yes.
or for the adaptation plan?
Adaptation plan.
The adaptation plan
Yeah.
requires annual report?
That's a new requirement that's been getting put into all of the new permits as they get renewed.
So it sounds something very technical that I personally would have any expertise to write. It requires a system analysis, complying with all the federal requirements, addressing all the critical requirements in a report.
Yeah, essentially it's a risk analysis of the susceptibility of the system assets, whether it be sewer lines, pump stations, treatment facilities, or whatever, to the effects of climate change, such as flooding, for example, and what could be done to help minimize the risk to those assets. And that's a whole planning process.
Have you got experience with this, Mike, from other customers?
It's fairly new. I've had some discussions with Allenstown about it and doing something like that.
Have they contracted you for services? for
Not
that
yet, because the permit hasn't been finalized yet.
Is there a deadline for the implementation of these policies?
It's like when this permitting regulation gets approved in 3 or 4 months, yes, within 3 months after that, you have to start generating your plan, to write the plans.
A plan to write a plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good, that's how you delay it a
So,
little.
my next
We're
step
gonna
is,
meet in December.
while I'm visiting the more professional system engineers at Manchester, there's a whole bunch of obligations that they have in here, and I'm going to ask what they're doing to define the various plans. I want to gather more information from those professional engineers running that plant.
Okay.
And I'll report back.
We would, I'm gonna be upfront here, because I try to be as upfront. I certainly would appreciate any help you can help us with this when we get to the phase of, we're gonna probably have to have a contract with you to help us at some point, because you're gonna pull this from Allenstown. We wouldn't ask you to work for Allenstown and supply us with information at their cost. So I'm sure that we could be happy to either share some expenses with Allenstown if they're willing, or we'd have to do it on our own, pay you independently. But I don't expect you to advise us and, you know, dig into regulations and write policies that would benefit us both, because it's the same project. Maybe Allenstown is willing to work with us and, you know, do something on a cost-sharing basis of some kind. That would be up to you to decide if you want to do that. If you don't want to do that, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, generally the assessment is similar, but obviously each individual system is unique, has unique characteristics in terms of what physical assets are there.
Do they tell you what you need to provide information on? Is there a map to follow? So someone's gonna have to figure out the map first. That's the generalness of the report. Before you can write a report, you have to know what items you have to report on, and that could be research. It could be checking with the EPA to find out what their reporting requirements are. And that, if that applied to both towns, that's the kind of thing. And then after we know what we have to report on, then it would be individual contract for us for our reporting, and obviously individual for them. We can work on that. Anything else, Dave, from the EPA at this time?
No.
Thank you. So you're gonna report,
No.
make copies for them? Would you like me to send Mike my email from
Yes.
this that
Yes.
Mike sent, that I received?
Yes,
I'll forward it to Mike.
You sent it to me on 19 December.
I will send the same email to Mike and Corey both. So I will do that tomorrow.
Perfect.
That way you don't have to make a bunch of copies or
Thank you.
do whatever you gotta do. And check with me by the end of the week to make sure you got it. If you didn't get it, I'm gonna screw it up because I'm like Fred Flintstone with the computer, so I may have to come back to Dave to have him forward that
And
email.
Mr. Chairman, there was a very nice sewer department write-up in this annual report.
That was one you did, right?
Well, I recognized a few of the paragraphs.
Well, that's a writing style. Let's see, do we have anything else tonight from anybody?
So,
Jim, are you gonna ask to be
So
sewer
Dan.
representative again
I don't know
next
if you
year?
picked one of these up when you
Or
wrote
two?
it today.
I didn't.
Yeah,
If not, they're at the town hall.
I'm starting to understand what you guys are talking about, so I understand.
Well, we like you when you participate.
Yeah, well, thanks.
I think it takes more than one term as a sewer rep to actually understand the job.
I agree.
So maybe the board, when they reconvene after the election and everything, they will let you come back to us another year.
Yeah. Well, it depends, I don't know who's gonna work, I don't know who's gonna be on the
What the
budget
assignments
committee
are
and
gonna be.
things like that too, so we're short on experience now. So I don't know, but yeah.
Well, there's no point in somebody trying to learn this job new when you already know it. Let them learn something else new somewhere else, if that can happen.
I'll tell them you said so.
You sure?
I don't care.
I'm happy to come and say it myself.
No, okay, I think I
Anything else from anybody in this room for discussion tonight?
Just
Question.
one.
Mike?
You'd asked me for a proposal or a draft contract for Cross Street
Yes.
sewer replacement, and I heard you mention that won't be done this year. Do you still want that, or?
I would appreciate it if you could begin your engineering work with the survey and everything, so that if and when it gets decided what's going on Cross Street, maybe we could put out a contract at the end of this year for a 2026 start or something. 'Cause you really gotta get in the queue with these guys.
Well, question for you guys. Should we just survey the entire neighborhood since they're gonna be out there and we're gonna need the information anyways?
Well, how does surveying work, Mike? Does it work on a daily basis? Does it work on a contract? How does it work? I mean, you're talking about Higgins?
Yeah, Cross, Higgins, that entire neighborhood is slated for replacement at some time and it's gonna need to be surveyed.
Would anything
Well,
change?
you
if-
already have Albert Street.
So that picked up a lot of Cross Street.
Albert
Yeah.
Street feeds to Cross,
Sort of.
and Higgins feeds into,
From Sharon, which is all the way in the back, Rochambeau, then you have Sharon, then you have Plummer, Kermit, the 3 cut-through streets.
And we would begin with the downstream streets first, correct? The Higgins and those ones?
Cross.
Cross is the primary one.
Is the primary one, yeah.
And then Higgins comes down to Cross?
Higgins comes down to Cross, and then Rochambeau comes down to Cross.
Rochambeau is the one that's directly in from the 114 intersection.
Correct.
Are those the 3 main trunk lines in that neighborhood?
Yes.
So I would not be opposed to discussing having Rochambeau done, as well as Higgins, if you think it's important. I just don't want to do a survey and blow the budget 3 years in advance, because we could possibly do them at a later date. What would your recommendation to do first? Would Rochambeau be recommended to do first because it's a trunk line?
I would do Cross Street.
Well, I meant after Cross, excuse me.
After Cross, yeah, I would probably go to Rochambeau, because that's actually worse than Higgins.
Okay.
And then I would go to Higgins.
And you're upping your game on cleaning to make sure Higgins functions properly in the short term?
We clean that twice a year, just because we have issues in the neighborhood, so we try to
Those,
keep.
those are the flats, right?
Yep,
And Rochambeau, I know, has had trouble because the selectman lives on Rochambeau.
yep. And it backs up into his basement first, so.
So, commissioners, do you think that we would be advised to do some pre-surveying, Dave? Daniel?
It doesn't go to waste.
It's not gonna change.
The data
It's not
doesn't
gonna
change.
change unless there's an earthquake, but, yes.
Why do we have 2 lines on Larch Street?
So there's an old line and a new line. One flows one direction, one flows the other direction.
I just looked at that earlier.
We were
And
looking-
then, and one connects into this neighborhood.
Rochambeau, yep. The new line, that's actually the interceptor that runs down and turns, and that's how it gets out to the rail trail in that spot. And then it continues down Mass Road and then goes down Roosevelt and takes a left on the dead end, goes through the woods, down to the rail trail again. There's a really sketchy looking manhole on the edge of the rail trail, as Dave must know.
The ground is very smelly and then mucky.
We checked them, we opened the manholes and
The
nothing.
ground is being saturated with.
I wonder if we have a leak on one of the joints adjacent to the manhole.
It,
How deep is it, Corey?
the manhole in the hill's probably 20 feet.
It's,
It's like a.
Is that on the hill of the landfill?
a considerable portion
No.
of the hill is mucky. So
We
water's
went out-
flowing out.
Somebody had called and complained last summer, so we went out and actually popped those manholes to make sure there wasn't like a backup, like Dave was saying, and it was coming
Blowing
through. But the water goes so fast down that hill, there's no way, there's no stopping
What
it.
could a possible source of water be other than groundwater? Could it be
It's-
from the landfill?
It's always been wet through there, even when we worked out there
Well,
doing
then it
ditching.
wouldn't hurt to have a camera run in that area, just to make sure there's not a fracture in the pipe and the water is escaping the pipe somehow. That's the only way you're gonna know if the pipe is discharging water into the ground.
I'll ask Belmore, we'll pop a manhole and look, because I don't know if you can put a camera in that. The flow is so fast.
It's a big hill.
Yeah, I don't,
And
I
what
think
size
it
pipe
would,
is it, Corey?
Could the flow be
18?
blocked for 15 minutes?
Probably not.
no. If
You'd
that
have
was
to-
blocked for 15 minutes, you'd have sewer in the river.
We would have to set up a bypass pumping operation, bypass each section that we want a camera the section, and then take the bypass pump out.
Mhm.
We can do it.
Yeah, we can do it,
It's just maintenance, and it's part of the DPA requirement, actually.
yeah.
So that's something else that you could just ask a few questions about. Does Ray have the bypass pumping ability?
I don't know, I'm not sure.
We might have to go to Ted Berry or one of those other camera contractors that are a little bit bigger. You can find out.
Yeah, I'll ask. That's why I'll pop the manhole and have them look and tell me what they suggest. If that's something they can handle, bypass, or if there's another company with a different camera.
Belmore did bypass for us in Manchester, I can tell you that. When we had to do that sewer connection next to the Grand State Credit Union. He came out and he bypassed and ballooned it and pumped it, and we did our tap, and he took care of it. So he does do that, I believe.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to know if there is a damaged pipe there that is discharging water into the subgrade there. And if we can affirmatively state that we have a camera of that 2 sections of pipe maybe, that we are not discharging water into the ground, we've done our due diligence. It's water from some other reason, not
Yeah.
from us. Well, here's project 8-7. What's that area called?
What?
Area,
Where we're gonna have you look at the,
would be the rail trail.
Well, it's off the end of,
Sharon.
Sharon Street to the rail trail.
Sharon, what's it called, Court?
No, it's just Sharon Street.
the Sharon pipe.
Is Sharon Street over where the old oil tanks used to be? No? On the corner?
Sharon Street is if you go by Selectman LeMay's house.
Yes.
Then you go all the way to the end and you bang a right.
Yes.
That's Sharon Street.
And does that go all the way down and
Can-
tie back
Roche.
into
Louis Street.
Louis Street?
Yep.
And right there on the corner, is that where it goes over the bank?
Yep.
That's
Right
where
where
the old
power
oil
line-
tanks used to be,
Uh-huh.
as I remember. Used to be a fuel oil guy
That's
supply
why-
building there.
That's why it's sort of a cleared area then.
Anything else? I'm sure everybody would like to go home. Jim has to go back and count ballots. Jim, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, getting out of here.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, anybody want to second it?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, anybody want to discuss it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, GTV, we are adjourned.